What it do? Yo man, listen. Today, I'm gonna be ranking the guild raid bosses. I'll tell what I like about them, I'll tell what I don't like about them, and I will be giving them a letter grade in regards to how good I think they are. So, let's get right into the video. Before I do that, I want to announce the winner of the neurothrope giveaway. Blue Lightning 2K won the neurothrope giveaway. I contacted them on YouTube. They returned to me on Discord. They were able to get the character. So congratulations to them. I will most likely hold another giveaway next month. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Our first boss is a Turbigon. Now, Turbigon is an introductory boss. When you're at the lower ranks, you will see a lot more of him. He is a very simple boss. He simply exists to teach players how to play guild raids, the basic concepts about, Eldrion, hit, damage, simple boss mechanics such as summoning, and, when certain versions of him make it so when you attack with a psychic damage, you take a little bit of damage back. So this thing is essentially a punching bag that summons some, inconsequential bugs that just annoy you. Maybe they take away some summon's attention that you created, but it's not too complicated of a boss. I opt to give it a B plus. You might be thinking that's a little bit of a high grade Draupnir. I understand that. The reason I'm giving it a B plus is because it's an introductory boss. It teaches players what they're supposed to do in guild raids, and I think it does it quite well. The second introductory boss is the Hive Tyrant, or the Winged Hive Tyrant, rather, is more accurate. Unlike the Turbigon, he is quite mobile because of the ability to fly. He is, just as scary. The attacks aren't that terrifying. His summons are much more consequential. Because they are swarm units, they are harder to take down, and summons do struggle with them. However, like the Turbigon, it's an introductory boss. It's to get you in the, it's to get you ready for the harder bosses to come. So I'm gonna give it a B plus as well. It's a little bit more daunting than the Turbigon because of the mobility. However, other than that, it's not a very scary boss. It's quite a simple boss, I think. The next boss, Gasal. Now, Gasal is a very technical boss. He is quite rigid in how his movements go. He dashes, he fan fires, and then he hits, and then he summons, and he just repeats that, right? I used to really like Gasal Traka. I think he was one of the most enjoyable bosses. However, the more and more I play against this boss, the more annoying the Storm Boy RNG gets. Now, in the middle of the fight, Gasal Traka summons Storm Boys. These Storm Boys, they, move around and they attack you, which is, pretty reasonable. However, because orc magic or orc technology is not very stable, sometimes these Storm Boys, they explode, which makes sense. It is very flavorful, very cool, I think. However, at higher ranks, where the strategy is to trap Gasal and whatnot, the Storm Boy RNG really gets annoying because sometimes all boys die, and that's pretty cool, or sometimes none of them die. And the way to deal with them effectively is Marnie's Calgar. And if you don't have Calgar, well, tough luck. And I don't think you being pushed to play a character is very good. I don't like it. However, other than that, this is a very enjoyable boss. I think they did a really good job implementing Gasal Traka Tacticus. So I'm not going to be too mean. I'm going to give it a B minus. The reason the first two bosses, the much more simpler bosses, got a higher grade is because they're introductory bosses and they do what they're supposed to do effectively. Gasal summons, I think they are quite frustrating to fight against. Other than that, he's a very good boss fight. If the boys were designed in such a way that two of them always explode and two of them never explode, I think that'll push Gasal to A tier. Now, speaking of RNG, Scarak, the Silent King, the Necron boss. The Throne RNG is the single worst thing in the game. I know. I like to meme around about oh guys, I hate Arena or oh, Guild Wars this, Guild. No. No joke. Scarak deciding to come off his throne or not is the single worst thing about Tacticus. Forget about the monetization, forget about the RNG, forget about the requisitions, whatnot. Scarak RNG is so frustrating because it's completely out of your control. And some more experienced players will say, hey, Draupnir, all you need to do is play Biowar and put a Spore Mine on top of Barbed Wire, which increases Skarak's chance to come down. And I get that. That's fine. But you're required to bring a guy, and that's fine. That's so completely fine. I acknowledge that. However, even when you do that, sometimes he doesn't come. And when he doesn't come down, you're losing like 200,000 damage. Why? Because he just got unlucky with the RNG. I don't think that's fun. There is no other boss in the game that is as devastating as this guy deciding to not move on turn 1. You know, I don't think he's a very interesting boss either. He is quite similar to the first 2 Tyranid bosses, where when you trap him in place, he just stays there and takes it. And it's not like he, is dangerous to you. When you kill the primes, all he does is move to high ground, attack you with his, pea shooter of a gun. You take a little bit of damage, and then he just keeps running away from you. The reason he doesn't take damage isn't because he's killing your characters, he's, using it, but no, he's just running away to the corner of the map where only 1 or 2 things can kill him. That's why I'm giving this guy an F-. Just the worst possible grade. I hate doing this guy. I go out of my way to not attack this guy when it's him. I attack every other boss but him. Next boss, Tank. Now, it's a very contentious issue, I get that. Tank is very stat checky. If you get Gunner's Fire, you get caught in that arc, and you don't have high-level characters, they will get a lot of, their health taken away, and some of them will probably die. He is very punishing against players who don't know how to play against him. He has a very sharp learning curve. However, I think when you figure out how he plays, the reasoning behind his actions, I don't think he's as horrible. So I'm gonna give it a B-. He is very stat checky and he can be frustrating at times. However, there is a rhyme, or there is a reasoning behind all of his things, and you can manipulate his movement a little bit to the point where he is significantly less punishing. Now, the Scream, what is this? Sorry, wrong image. Looks very similar to the Screamer Killer. Now, the Screamer Killer, he is very stat checky. He's all about, hey, can my melee characters tank him? Because once the primes are dead, and the 2 warriors on the board are dead, he just stays on low ground, he attacks you twice with melee, and that's all he does. He appears very daunting when you mess up, when you're fighting against him for the first time and he screams at you and a character just evaporates instantly. It is very demotivating. However, once you figure out how he works, his AI movements and whatnot, he's a very chill boss. I think he becomes significantly easier with a single diamond big target character such as Revas or Boskelgorts, where he can't push them back, so he just attacks them twice and the rest of your team can attack, without getting harmed unless they're melee. But if they're melee, you don't really need a lot of, You don't really need a lot of diamonds because, he's not that killing. He is dangerous, but after a certain point, he just stands there and doesn't really do anything. So I'm giving it an A+ because of how it balances the simplicity and danger, because of the fact that, hey, he's a guild raid boss, so you have to respect it a little bit, but he's not too complicated. Now, on the polar opposite of that is the Avatar of Cain. Now, the Avatar, it's designed to be a very difficult boss. The lack of Eldarion in your guild raid team makes it so you don't get your consistent damage, and you have to innovate using strategies. For example, the Asmodai proof of concept video I did, the whole reason Asmodai is even in that video is because you can't bring Eldarion against this guy. The boss fight is very chaotic. There's, Avatar's there, he's flaming everything around. They're the guys with the grenades, they're coming, Avatar's moving. It gets very hectic, very out of hand, very fast. Now, other bosses, you can lock them in place and you can block their movement. However, the fact that the Avatar has an exploding attack that pushes enemies back makes it so you can trap him for 1 or 2 turns, but at some point, he's going to push everything back and he's going to move out. So it's very difficult to control the boss, and he dunks on your characters. You know, if you're not using the healing hexes, if you're trying to use high ground and he just decides that you need to die, he will absolutely obliterate you. Even diamond characters get dunked on by this guy. You can't face tank. For example, other bosses, realistically at lower ranks, you can face tank everything they do, but Avatar you can't. And he does stat check you very hard. He's quite a difficult boss, and unlike other bosses where you dominate them and whatnot, he is a boss where you just roll with the punches and try to do best you can. And he does feel like a boss. He's a little overtuned, I do agree with that. But I think the fact that the grenades can no longer crit, the change that Snowprint did a little bit ago, I think that helps a lot in improving the enjoyability of this encounter. So I'm going to give it an A, not an A minus, not an A plus. I think it's a very solid A. He's very close to being a very fun boss. Just a few things need to be changed, I think. But even then, it's a very good boss. I'm very hopeful for future bosses because it's the last one we got and it was very good. Now, the last boss, Mortarion. I love Mortarion. I think Mortarion is the single best boss in the game. I think the other bosses can benefit greatly from being more similar to Mortarion. What do I mean by this? He plays very differently. He has a very clear and defined mechanic where he hates Psykers, so he will go after Psykers. There are very few things in his encounter that can happen at random, and that is the Poxwalker spawns. They are annoying, sure, but they're not as devastating as other encounters. I do like the fact that you can go into this fight with a Bronze 1 Yaskor, and Bronze 1 Yaskor will not get obliterated the first instant the boss looks at him. He's a very enjoyable boss. Like, what's his name, Avatar, he will be attacking your characters. For example, if you have Diamond 3 characters and Mortarion decides to attack them with his range attack, they will take a lot of damage and some of them might even die. You know, it's very common for Abrax to die when you're fighting against this guy. However, he's not just dunking your whole entire team. If you stand in his miasma, sure, you have to respect the boss to a certain extent. He does have very interesting mechanics where you can't just do Unga Bunga, I'm gonna summon Bellator summons right next to you. And with the most recent change that Snowprint did where his wind does double damage to summons, it's a very good change in my opinion. It creates a boss identity that is very different from other bosses. So I really like Mortarion. I'm not going to glaze him too hard. I'm going to give it an A+. He's my favorite boss. I think he's very good. I think he's very enjoyable. And I'm going to give it a, very brilliant sticker. Yeah, and that's what teachers do, I think. Anyways. Bloody Rose Discord server. Link in the description. Draupnir gang chat. You should join, we should chat, yeah? Pretty cool. Thank you very much for watching my video. Special thanks to Dieselfox, Papa John, Lita Llama, Sarp, Heartswept, Ascaleon, Yeris, Busmek Soup, Prosan, Infant Pawa, and Uzelta4. Special thanks to Carl, Ian, and Mike. The refer friend code is in the middle of the screen if you want to enter it. I would greatly appreciate it. It's a great way to support this channel and it means a lot to me. So once again, thank you very much. Have a good day and stay safe.